Welcome to the I Choose Health podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Leslie. Today we have fitness trainer, author, and producer of the hit TV show Fit to Fat to Fit, Drew Manning, with us on the show.
Eating whatever I want is freedom. My whole life, I have not been able to find the recipe to lose weight. I want to be thin. I want to have a boyfriend who can put both of his arms around me. And I just want to be proud of myself. I want to lose this weight before I turn 40. And I have a few more years to get married and have kids. So this is it. This is the real deal. I'm tired of waiting. I'm tired.
In life, man, you gotta do it, man. The physical changes I'm seeing, the abs are gone. The lines and definitions that I have, they're starting to disappear. Just watching TV and being inactive. I feel tired. My airway is closing. I'm a bit winded. My heart rate is like up. Just like I'm getting dizzy, headaches. It's really starting to suck to be overweight. This is not a good feeling. This is not good.
Millions of us are overweight. We turn to experts for advice on how to get from fat to fit. But the experts don't understand because they've never been fat.
Is something interfering with your happiness or preventing you from achieving your goals? There is definitely something keeping me from my happiness and accomplishing my goals. I needed to take stock of my depression and consistent negative self-talk. Therapy helped me realize that I was deserving of happiness. That's why this podcast is called I Choose Health. It was about me choosing happiness, and I wanted to share that with you. That's why I wanted to and have partnered with BetterHelp as a sponsor to share the gift of therapy with you. Over 4 million people have used BetterHelp to start living a healthier, happier life. People spend hours in the gym every week, so why not give your mind the same kind of attention? Starting therapy can be hard. The right therapist for you may not be in your area, and some people find the face-to-face interaction of therapy uncomfortable. With BetterHelp, you can have your therapy sessions as a phone call, as a video chat, or even via messaging if you prefer that. Whatever is the most comfortable version of therapy for you. BetterHelp can match you to one of over 30,000 therapists in their network, which gives you access to a wider range of expertise that may be available in your area. To get started, you fill out a questionnaire to help assess your specific needs, and then you'll get matched with your therapist, in most cases within 48 hours or less. You'll be able to schedule therapy sessions at a time that's convenient for you. If the therapist you're first matched with doesn't feel like the right fit, which can be common when starting therapy, you can easily switch to a new therapist at no additional cost without stressing about insurance, who's in your network, or anything like that. If you think you might benefit from therapy, consider BetterHelp. Click the link in the description or visit betterhelp.com/iChooseHealth for 10% off your first month with a licensed therapist. Welcome back, guys, to the I Choose Health podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Leslie. Well, ladies and gentlemen, the word for today is empathy. And you know, empathy is the ability to understand and share the emotions of another person as if they were your own. And, you know, being a personal trainer now in the last 4 years, I've noticed that empathy is something that has really been lacking in our profession, and not really understanding what our clients go through, whether they're overweight or underweight or not too much experience in regards to being in the gym or working out. And I think that we really need to come from a place of understanding to really have a positive impact on our clients. And our guest today has had such an impact, not just on his clients, but I think on the fitness community on the whole, really introducing this aspect of empathy. And, he is the author of the book, Fit to Fat to Fit. Both him and Brad Pierce were the co-authors of that book, as well as the book, Complete Keto, A Guide to Transforming Your Body and Your Mind for Life. And he's also the producer of the show, Fit to Fat to Fit, the show on A&E that was really successful and really impactful. So, ladies and gentlemen, I want to invite Drew Manning to the show.
Stefan, thanks for having me on, man. It's a pleasure to be here.
Thank you, man. I really appreciate you being here. And I want to really delve into this concept of empathy. Before you start to go into that of empathy, how long were you a trainer before you start to realize, like, I really need to start considering what it is my clients are going through and what they're feeling?
Yeah, I started training people officially in 2009. And then it wasn't until 2011 where I came up with the idea for doing Fit to Fat to Fit. And it came from a conversation with a client of mine who was my brother-in-law back then. And I was training him, and, he had been overweight, majority of his life. And for me, I had been in shape all of my life. Like, I grew up in a family of 11 brothers and sisters. I played football and wrestling from a very young age. And so I was always in shape. I was always fit, and I never knew any different. And so when I was training him, I would get frustrated when he just couldn't follow the meal plan or just couldn't do the workouts consistently. I'm like, dude, why is it so hard for you? You just do it. Like, stop eating the junk food, go to the gym. Like, it's not that hard. You just do it, right? Because in my mind, it was so easy. And he said something to me along the lines of, he's like, Drew, you don't understand how hard it is for me or for people like me. And because for you, it's always been easy. And I was like, you know what? You're right. I can't argue with that. I don't understand why it's so hard. It seems so simple in my mind. You just do it, right? But it caused me to think. And for whatever reason, the idea of getting fat on purpose and documenting that journey just kind of, it entered my brain, and a light bulb went off. And I was like, man, maybe I need to do this. And so that was in 2011. So about 2 years later is when I started my Fit to Fat to Fit journey.
That's amazing. When I first heard of the concept, I was just like, I don't know if I could do that, because it was like, being someone that struggled with their weight pretty much from the age of 7 or 8, right up until I was 20, just knowing the emotional toll that took on me from not just like being out of shape, but then self-confidence issues, being able to really relate to people around me, feeling comfortable in my own skin. Like, these were all issues that I had. So just like hearing that and then saying, like, I'm actually going to, take the initiative to put a whole set of weight on and then take it off, that was just like amazing. Like, I'm not even sure if I'm even in that mind space now to do that. I mean, that's it's amazing. So
it definitely is very humbling.
Yeah. So I want to talk a little bit about the A&E show. How did that come about? How was that idea pitched? Or did someone come to you and say, like, hey, like, what you did, I think is a really good idea to document something like this?
Yeah, that's a really good question. So what happened was, when I did my Fit to Fat to Fit experiment, which was 6 months of no exercise, and I just ate a bunch of processed American junk food that we have, I put on 75 pounds in 6 months of pure fat. And the story kind of went viral. Like, I went on like Jay Leno, I went on Dr. Oz, I went on Good Morning America. I did all these TV shows because, obviously the media was like, what is this trainer doing, right? And a production company from LA reached out to me and said, hey, we have an idea for a TV show based on your journey. We want to team up with you. And so this is a funny story. Not a lot of people know this, but we joined forces, me and this production company, because they know all the executives at all these networks like ABC and NBC. And so we teamed up and went and pitched to all the networks about this concept for a TV show called Fit to Fat to Fit. And what's funny is no one bought it. No one picked it up. We're like, man, this is such a good idea. I can't believe it. And what's funny is 2 years went by of like no one buying it. Wow. It's kind of dead in the water. And then all of a sudden, the production company's like, hey, we're going to go repitch this after a couple of years. And so I gave them permission to do that. And then boom, like a week later, A&E bought the show.
Wow.
And so that's kind of how the TV show came to be. And the concept was to put other trainers through the same journey that I did. So I was kind of like the creator of the show. It was more of like a docu-series type of format. It wasn't like Biggest Loser, where it was like a competition style, but it was basically documenting these trainers' journey of gaining weight, and I would kind of coach them through that process of gaining weight and then trying to lose the weight, but they would lose it with their client, and that's what kind of made it kind of powerful. And then you saw some of those episodes, which were, there's 2 trainers from New York, by the way, that were pretty interesting journeys that they went on. So that was the TV show in a nutshell, and there was 2 seasons, one on A&E, the second year was on Lifetime, and unfortunately the show's is no longer exists, but who knows, maybe one day.
I think as you were talking about those New York trainers, I think one of them was a lady by the name of Katie Mack, I think.
Yeah, Katie Mack and Adonis.
Yeah, she had an interesting journey, because I noticed that she had a hard time like regaining motivation to work out and like getting back in shape. So that was just like interesting to see like how it had a real like toll on her, the impact it had on her.
Yeah. Yeah, a lot of the trainers struggled, and this is what I wanted to highlight on my journey, but other people's, the other trainers' journey, was how much of transformation is mental and emotional, right? So many people, like the old version of me, like the before Fit to Fat to Fit, and other trainers who have never been overweight, kind of have this idea of like, dude, it's calories in, calories out, just eat less calories and move your body, and you just do it. Like there's no, like you said, there's a lack of empathy. And you can be very judgmental towards people who are overweight. Like, why can't you guys just stop being lazy and just do the work, right? And I'll admit that used to be me. I used to be judgmental until I did Fit to Fat to Fit, and I was truly humbled. And it was way harder than I thought it was going to be. And I realized how much of it is mental and emotional, and the emotional connection to food is way more powerful than we think. And then these trainers did the same thing, where they were humbled and they had more respect and more empathy for their clients, because they realized it's way more of a mental and emotional journey, because humans aren't robots. We are emotional creatures. And when we're emotional creatures, we eat our emotions sometimes. A lot of people escape through food. Some people escape through drugs or alcohol or smoking, but food is probably the most accessible drug, because you need it to survive. Like, you have to eat food, right? And so what kind of food do we have here in America? This highly processed junk food that is super cheap and affordable. It's super convenient, and I'll be totally honest with you, man. Like, Cinnamon Toast Crunch is like crack cocaine, because it's so delicious and like it's so accessible, and you can have it as an adult every meal of the day if you wanted to. No one's going to stop you, and you can just DoorDash it to your house. You don't even need to leave your home anymore. And that's the problem we have in America, is if you want to get in shape, it's an uphill battle. We make it hard. Like, you want to eat healthy food, it's more expensive. It's going to take time to meal prep. Right? And it's not an excuse. I'm just saying we make it hard on our society to lose weight and get in shape, because it's, like I said, food, like healthy food, is more expensive. You got to pay for a gym membership. You got to pay for supplements. You got to like make time to meal prep and go to the gym and all the things. And, there's not a lot of support in our society for that. But, anyways, I talk a lot about how to help people through those mental and emotional hurdles. But that's why I have so much empathy for people now. Like you said, empathy is a game changer. And it took me doing Fit to Fat to Fit to finally be humble enough to at least have a better understanding. I'm not going to lie and pretend to have a complete understanding of what it's like to be overweight, like as a kid. Mm-hmm. But at least I can say I have a better understanding now.
Yeah. Yeah, and I think that's really, really important. One thing that I started doing, especially when I first started working out with clients, or training clients, was that I would work out with them. And they would say, like, I really appreciate you actually like coming in and doing the workout and feeling, doing it with me. And I know a lot of times they would say things like, well, it's easy for you, because you're in shape. But, I think that, there is a real impact to doing it when you're out of shape with clients, and they're seeing that you're kind of having a similar struggle and maybe a difficult struggle getting up. So I think it's such an impactful for them to see that. And I just remember the look on the faces of a lot of those people that were in the A&E show, how they responded to seeing the trainer after a couple of months. And they were just like, wow, like you did that. You did that for me. And like, now I'm like really emotionally invested. And I think that's one thing we want, right? We want clients to be emotionally invested in this work of fitness and getting fit.
Yeah, there's a good quote that I love that I think kind of sums up what Fit to Fat to Fit is all about. And it's by, I think it's a Teddy Roosevelt quote. He says, no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care.
Right.
And there's a million trainers with all the knowledge of the science of how to manipulate body composition and lose weight and fat loss, right? Like, that's awesome to have that knowledge, and it's important. But no one cares how much you know until they know how much you care. And that's where empathy comes in. And so, people who are overweight, and they see a trainer with six-pack abs, there's an automatic disconnect sometimes where they're like, what does this person know about what I go through? And that's where I think, if trainers could, or not just trainers, but coaches, doctors, people with the knowledge, if they could learn how to develop empathy, it would make such a big difference in people's journeys, because when people feel understood, I think they're more willing to listen.
Have you found that this concept of empathy kind of works in the reverse as well? So like, not for individuals who are overweight, but people who've been like underweight their entire life, they're skinny, they're trying to put on muscle, and they just always felt like it's out of place. Like, I don't know if you've felt that. Like, I had a client today that, I was taking her through one of our introductory sessions, and I noticed how like jittery and nervous she felt. Like there was a lot of like nervous energy from my interaction with her. And she didn't have a good relationship with exercise, but she'd always been like very skinny, right? And even when I did like her InBody scan, I don't know how familiar you are with InBody, but those InBody machines will give you a suggestion of like, well, you need to put on this amount of mass or lean body mass. And I noticed that she was just like, she felt a little bit more confident as I was guiding her through some of the exercises and doing it with her. So I don't know, have you found that concept of empathy, or have you explored that concept of empathy on the reverse side of things?
Yes. I think it's universal. I think every human wants to be understood. To be totally honest with you, whether you're overweight, skinny, whatever your struggles are, there is something magical about feeling safe, feeling seen, feeling like you're understood, like you're heard. Like people are like, this person is listening to you, they're hearing you, they're understanding you. And then when that happens, no matter what the issue is, whether it's like, hey, I need you to listen to me when it comes to my health or my mental health or my spiritual health. Like I think empathy is a universal want or need for all humans to thrive. And it doesn't matter what the issue is. I think this world would be a better place with more empathy. Just look at social media and how quickly people triggered are by someone's political post or religious post, and how triggering it is. We're so quick to judge and label people. And the problem with that is it creates division, and division creates dehumanization, and dehumanization can lead to the ugliest side that we've seen humans do to each other in this world. And that's why I'm a huge, huge proponent of empathy, not just in the fitness industry, but all over the place.
Now, the book, Fit to Fat to Fit, was that something that, well, in terms of how that came about, was that you documenting more of like a personal journey or personal, like, I guess, aha moment when it comes to understanding what clients go through when they're trying to lose weight? Or what was that book? What was the basis or foundation of that book?
Yeah, when I wrote the book, Fit to Fat to Fit, I was actually writing it during my experience. So as it was happening, I was writing what I was experiencing. So it kind of gives you a more in-depth look of what I went through physically, mentally, and emotionally, being married at the time. My wife even has a chapter in the book, or my ex-wife has a chapter in the book about what she experienced as my spouse, because she's never experienced me overweight. And yeah, it was just a more in-depth, raw look of like how I was truly humbled and how it changed my perspective. So if people want to know, like, and this was back in 2011, so we're talking like 13 years ago, which is crazy. It's an in-depth look of what I went through and how it changed me and the lessons that I learned from the experience. So if people want to, because most people just see the pictures of fit to fat to fit, and they're like, oh yeah, like he gained weight, lost it, end of story. But the book is, there's so much more to the mental and emotional side of what I experienced and how humbling it was. So that's kind of what the Fit to Fat to Fit book was, and that became a New York Times bestseller at the time, which was a great, cool thing to achieve in my opinion. But anyways.
And then would you say that the Complete Keto book was more instructional, like in terms of like just kind of giving more guidance in that sense?
Yeah, so good question. Complete Keto came in 2019, and I'd stumbled upon the ketogenic diet in about 2015, 2016, started doing some experiments with it, did some research on it, was able to go on Dr. Oz presenting about the keto diet, and it was super popular back then. And plus, it took a Complete Keto. Yes, it is kind of talking about the ketogenic diet, but if you look at that book or you read it, you realize it takes the lessons from Fit to Fat to Fit, applies them to a ketogenic lifestyle, which has like tons of recipes and meal plans and workouts, the stuff that you would expect from a fitness book. But it also talks a lot about the mental and emotional side of like emotional eating, self-sabotage, why people get stuck in these vicious cycles of eating this delicious processed junk food that we just talked about, because it is cheaper and more affordable. It is hyper palatable, which means it's super addictive and it tastes really good. And it's super convenient. It's so much easier to just purchase that stuff than it is to, get chicken breast and broccoli and kale and salad and chop that up and meal prep that every single day. And yeah, does it taste as good as Cinnamon Toast Crunch? No. But, that's the problem is like, we kind of escape. I think most humans like to escape their emotional pains of life through substances like food, drugs, alcohol, smoking, because it's easier to escape and numb out on those substances like food, drugs, and alcohol than it is to sit with that uncomfortable pain and, go to therapy or meditate or do breath work or journal. And most people would just rather escape the pain and suppress it and push it away. But there's a good quote that I love by Rumi, who says, the cure for pain is in the pain. And what he means by that, in my opinion, is instead of running away from the pain, ignoring the pain, numbing yourself from the pain and distracting yourself from the pain, face the pain, let it teach you something. Pain is a teacher. It's there to teach you something. And until you face it, you can't really heal from that pain, because if you're constantly just numbing out and distracting yourself with food, you're just pushing it down, but eventually it's going to ooze out and manifest in certain forms, and you might end up taking out that pain on someone else, because hurt people hurt people. And until you let that pain move through you so you can finally release it and be free from it, you're just going to continue to bleed on those who didn't cut you. And this is why I'm such a big proponent of doing the inner work while working out. Because if you're not doing the inner work and you're just working out and you're just working on your physical body, thinking that's going to fix all your problems, I promise you it's not. Like, even if you get the 6-pack abs and the 5% body fat and you achieve all that, that'll feel good for a second, but it's not going to last forever. And this is why doing the inner work to heal those inner wounds, that pain that I'm talking about, is so important as well. And instead of just numbing out on food or drugs or alcohol, finding a healthier tool like working out or walking or getting out in nature or meditating or going to therapy to deal with that so that you're not triggered, which leads to usually bad choices when it comes to food. Because like I said, it's easier to numb out on ice cream and Cinnamon Toast Crunch than it is to, eat the chicken and broccoli. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Now, I know you shared that it was, you said it was your brother-in-law that shared that he felt like you didn't understand why it was difficult for him. And I know that, had you ever had the experience where it was a client that said like, hey, I'm working with you, but I don't know if you understand how difficult it is for me. Have you had that experience with a client as well?
It was mostly with my brother-in-law, but I would say no other client has said that to me, but there was definitely moments where I look back and they probably felt misunderstood. They probably felt judged. And, we're talking about 12, 13 years ago, of course. But, I still don't have the exact conversations, but I definitely was more of a judgmental person. Like, hey, like when they would check in with me and I'd be like, how did you do this week? I could tell they were like, it felt like they were going to confession probably. Like, no, I got to tell him what he wants to hear, because if I tell him the truth, then he's going to get upset. And I did get upset, like frustrated, like, right. Okay, why didn't you follow the meal plan? Like, what happened? Like, okay, you gave in to those temptations. Well, why did you do that? Just don't do that. It's like telling a drug addict, like, dude, why are you doing drugs? Just stop doing it, and then you won't have the problem, right? Like, that's the lack of empathy that I think a lot of people have, especially when it comes to, food addiction, of like, okay, so you ate the donut, why not just not eat the donut? That doesn't work. Like, that doesn't help people when you say it like that. And that was probably more of the type of person that I was.
Yeah. It's interesting because I was in a sales training meeting with my personal trainer director here. And, he was saying that naturally that people feel intimidated by personal trainers. And, it makes sense. Like, I definitely agree with that statement, because anytime you're doing assessments with clients and you want to try to figure out what their diet is like or what their sleep habits are like, and then it's usually, you notice, like, you can almost see in their face emotionally how their face changes. Like, there's like this, like, oh man, now I'm about to tell him, like, pretty much why I'm in this situation I'm in right now, and they don't want to share. I'm like, I say, hey, I can see what I think. I know what you're thinking. I want you to know this is a judgment-free zone. And I just want to, just for having it for information's sake, I want to know what that's like so we can work from here to then transform those habits and, pick up, better and healthier habits. So that's usually what I see where, people are really intimidated to talk to a personal trainer about. They're not so much intimidated, maybe asking for form tips, but maybe when it comes to like discussing their entire fitness life, when it comes to their routine, how they eat and sleep, then there's a lot of like discomfort around talking about that.
Yeah, you make a good point, because ultimately people do have to eventually make the right decisions at some point. But I think the trainer's ability to come from a place of curiosity instead of judgment. And like, I think you said the right thing of like, hey, I'm not judging you. This is a judgment-free zone. I'm just trying to better understand you. Like, I'm curious about why you do what you do, or why you react with food, or why you react the way you react. Because until they do, it'll just be a reoccurring thing, a pattern that they get stuck in. And this is why self-awareness is so important when it comes to transformation or overcoming addiction. There's a good quote by Anthony DeMello, who says, what you're aware of, you're in control of, and what you're not aware of is in control of you. And I think people lack the self-awareness to understand, well, why do I do this thing? Why do I escape through food? Why every time I'm triggered do I reach for this? Like, and getting at the core of where that first started and where that stems from. And once you become aware of it, then you can start to control it. And what I mean by that is, in the moment, the next time something happens where you're triggered and you want to reach for the cake and ice cream, your ability to push pause and breathe and observe what's happening and take a step back and feel like, okay, I'm being pulled in the direction that I normally go in. Why am I doing this? Oh, I got into a fight with my spouse, or finances are driving me crazy. I have this bill I have to pay this month, or, oh, my kids are just like, overwhelming for me, and like I'm exhausted and I haven't been sleeping well. Like, these are the things that are triggering me. And now in those moments of observing what's happening, you have the ability to thoughtfully respond instead of just be reactive. And so what I do now and how I help clients now is I help them with that level of self-awareness to get curious about themselves and have empathy for themselves. Because what happens is you don't have empathy for other people until you have empathy for yourself. Right. So getting curious about why you do what you do and why you react the way you react. I recommend a book to everyone called What Happened to You by Oprah and by Dr. Bruce Perry. Really good book to better understand, instead of saying what's wrong with me, where it comes from a place of judgment and self-hate sometimes. Reframing that question of what happened to me. What events, what experiences in my past led me down this path to where I started escaping through food, or I started finding comfort in food? And where did that first stem from? And just sitting back and observing all that instead of judging yourself for it, learn to get curious about yourself and like, oh, this is why I do this. And so, like I said, the next time you're triggered, instead of just being reactive and reaching for the food to like numb out, you can push pause, observe, and then thoughtfully respond. Like, okay, do I want to go down that path? Or do I want to do what Drew said and take 5 deep breaths and go for a 10-minute walk and then come back? And if I still want the cake, then I'll have the cake. But if I clear my mind and regulate my nervous system, most likely I won't want the cake. I'll be able to tap into my higher self and say, I don't want the cake all the time. Like I can't have it every day. So it takes a while to train people to do that, but it's doable.
And that's really powerful. I think just like really thinking about the things that have, I guess we could call it the scars that we've unconsciously received over the years. There's so much that goes on in our subconscious that it comes up on the surface, and it could happen when we're 5, 6, 7, 8, and surfaces when we're like 30 or 35 or 40, and just interesting how those things just come up, and I'm not really being aware of it. And I've started to see that, especially with like family members, especially like mom, dad, where you notice that there's certain scars which they haven't really spoken about, but it's really still impacting them in a really severe way. And, I'm starting to be like really more understanding of family members now, where like I become more aware of like what led to this, or feeling like there was something that led to this, and trying to find a way to, make it a comfortable place to talk about what it is that brought them to that point.
Yeah. I think that's huge. I think that's really important. It sounds like you're kind of already doing the right thing and helping people that way. And I think it's probably making a difference, and people feel seen and heard and understood. So good on you, man.
So with that said, at this point in the show, I'd like to give the guests a chance to share what they have coming up next, and then also share, where we can find you in terms of social media. So, I want to take this point to like really share what you have going on next, and then where we can find you.
Yeah, so I have a bunch of things coming up. I'm doing a 3-month group coaching journey, which is kind of entails all the stuff that I've talked about, where, we'll be reading some of those books that I mentioned. We'll be going over some of those quotes, and it's this, what I call a conscious fitness approach, which deals with, doing the inner work while doing the working out. And that way it's more impactful for people to, overcome those patterns that have been, holding people back, and helping them become more self-aware and develop some more self-worth and self-love on their journey, instead of just making it about macros and calories and working out, which will only get you so far, in my opinion. So I have that coming up April 8th. And then I'm also doing a couple of retreats. I live here in Hawaii on the Big Island, and I'm doing a couple of retreats this year, one in August and one in October, where people can come out and experience all the things that I'm talking about here on this island. The August one's already sold out. The October one, there's 15 spots available. There's 15 total spots available. 11 of those have already been sold, so there's 4 spots left for the month of October. If anyone's interested in getting a vacation before the winter months, coming out here for about 5-6 days for a truly life-changing experience, you can find all that out. Just hit me up on Instagram, which is fit2fat2fit. So fit to fat to fit. Also on Facebook and, TikTok and X and all the other platforms at fit to fat to fit.
Well, Drew, this was great. I learned a lot, and I was also really impacted by, in a lifestyle changing way, with the quotes that you shared there. Like, that was really significant. I'm going to take a lot of that with me, for personal reasons, and then also like sharing that with clients, friends, and family. So that's really impactful. So, with that said, ladies and gentlemen, that's it. I hope that this has been impactful to you as it's been to me. And again, on the I Choose Health podcast, we again, encourage you to really make the choice to be you and make the choice to, choose health, to be healthy. But again, it's totally at you, what you want to do with it, and make choices that are going to reinforce the best version and most positive version of you. So with that said, again, this is the I Choose Health podcast. I'm your host, Stephen Leslie. Thanks for watching.
Thank you, guys.